Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're watching this video. Hope you're having a good day. In this video, I want to sort of address three what questions as they relate to frequency distribution tables. Specifically, what are frequency distribution tables? What are they used for? And what are the parts to these tables? So the first question, what are frequency distribution tables? Well, they are tables that are used to express the results or present the results of a univariate descriptive analysis. What does that mean? I described a single variable. That's all it's saying. Then the question becomes, what are they used for? Well, they're used to present those results in a way that can be easily understood by the reader. And I have an example here that you should be able to see where it says the frequency distribution of publication decade for articles in, and that should say a dissertation. So I'd ask a student, tell me what years were the articles in your dissertation, and they went and they counted them up. They said, hey, I've got 39 articles in this dissertation, and I've made some changes for the purposes of this video, but they had 39 articles, and they said, well, this article was published in 2010. Well, there were 17 of them. There were 6 articles that were published in the 2000s, so from 2000 to 2009, so on and so forth. And so what a frequency distribution table is used for is to very easily, generally, and briefly describe the distribution of that variable as it relates to the different conditions of that variable. What does that mean? Shoeboxes. I like shoeboxes. It tells me I have 17 shoeboxes labeled from 2010 to 2019. I have 6 shoeboxes labeled 2000 to 2009, so on and so forth. Well, then the final question that we have to ask ourselves is, what are the parts to a frequency distribution table? And the answer to that's a little bit tricky because it sort of depends on the story that you want to tell. I'm going to address that in a later video. But what I have generated here for you is a table that you're most likely to see, frequency distribution table that you're most likely to see if you use, say, SPSS, data, or SAS. They will typically give you these parts. The first part is called the variable. Then you have the frequency, percent, valid percent, cumulative percent. Do you need all these parts? The answer is yes, no, and maybe. It depends on the story that you want to tell. It depends on the spacing that you have. It depends on the levels of the variables. There's a lot of factors that go into answering the question of, do I need all these parts? I can tell you from personal experience, I generally use the variable, obviously, the frequency, obviously, percent, and cumulative percent. Why? Well, because most of the time people have all of their data classified. There's not missing data. If, however, you have missing data, then I would suggest using valid percent. And the reason why is it makes it easier to write later. So these are all the parts to a frequency distribution table. And if all of your data is classified, there's no missing data, in other words, you don't have a subtotal, then you can get rid of valid percent. Those are the parts to the frequency distribution table. If we go to the internet, here is a table that was generated. This is a very old table, and it uses different language, and it's not in a proper format. And so this is, I think, where sometimes students get confused when they talk about what is a frequency distribution table. But it still has the same parts. I've got a variable called sex. Well, this immediately tells me this is an older table, because if it was a newer table, it wouldn't say sex, it'd say gender. And there would be more than just probably male and female. There might be transgender or LGBT or something like that. But what they have is they have a variable title called sex. You can be male, female, or unknown. They use the phrase number instead of frequency, but it's still the same column. Here are the numbers. And then they use the terms relative frequency and adjusted frequency. Well, look at the difference. This is the same as percent, and this is what we would call valid percent. We adjusted it we took out the unknown. See, there's no number there. And we still have the 100%. Now, some of the sharp-eyed individuals have already noticed that this doesn't say 100%. And we're going to talk about that in a later video. I hope this video has answered some of your questions. Hope it's raised some questions. If you have any, please let me know. Otherwise, have a nice day.